Nicholas Lim. My mother was adopted from South Korea in 1966 to a white American family. And thanks to her research efforts, we were also fortunate enough to be reunited with her biological family. On my father's side, I have a Korean American family, but the majority of my blood relatives actually live in North Korea. So because I have a Korean American family, a white American family, a South Korean family, and a North Korean family, my parents and I would sometimes, or my parents would tell me that I was somewhat of a byproduct of two kinds of division, but both of them stem from war. And I think growing up, I spent a lot of time, I went through long periods of time where I tried not to think about it because I think it was just a little overwhelming. But because, all three of my home countries have been locked in a state of war throughout my entire life, I can't help but wonder as an adult to what extent it shapes me and how I relate to my surroundings, especially considering how much remains unresolved overall. So I think that, along with my previous work, which relates to pop culture and seeing that South Korea has emerged as this soft power hub in Asia, I'm curious. I've always also been curious as to how that industry relates to South Korea's development under US-backed military law. So I think for those two reasons, both personal and professional, I decided to move to South Korea in 2020. Also, I've never talked about adoption publicly like this before, so sorry if I'm stuttering. I would advise for Korean Americans, especially young Korean American men who are interested in pursuing the F4 visa, to consult an immigration law beforehand, because they're really trying to meet, I think, their standing military quota. Yeah. So the F4 visa, I think, is harder to get than it used to be. How the way in which my mother's adoption was conducted impacted our family. So she was adopted in, as I said, 1966 from an orphanage called the Sunduk Orphanage in Jeonju. And the agency was called the International Social Services. The name that she was adopted under is Cha Jung-hee, and some of you might be familiar with the story, but it's kind of become like a case study. But Cha Jung-hee is my legal grandmother, but Cha Jung-hee doesn't exist. The papers that she had said that her mother had died during childbirth and her father died during the war, or right after the war. And that was a complete lie. So my mother actually had a single mom who's my biological grandmother, whose name is Kil-soon. And she had 3 sisters and 2 brothers. So when she came to Korea and confronted the Sunduk Orphanage about what happened to her, they admitted to her. They said that the real Cha Jung-hee had been suddenly taken away from the orphanage in the middle of the night by a man who claimed to be her father, but they produced no evidence of them verifying that the man was actually her father. And by the time this girl disappeared from the orphanage, my adoptive grandparents, had already paid to adopt this girl named Cha Jung-hee. So, instead of telling them the truth, the orphanage just swapped in my mom, and they forged her passport. They forged a fake certificate of orphanhood. All of this we still have. We recently discovered, the Korean document, and they shipped her off to America, away from her family. So she was 8 when this happened, and the orphanage director told her, personally told her to keep up this lie until she was old enough to take care of herself. But once she learned enough English, she tried to explain to my adoptive grandparents what had happened to her. And they didn't believe her because she had these fabricated documents that create a legal truth. So even though it's a lie, it's legally true that she was an orphan within the family. So that led her to kind of suppress her own culture and identity and her actual memories. And she lost her Korean language abilities, and she ended up believing for most of her youth, I guess subconsciously forcing herself to believe that she was actually this girl named Cha Jung-hee who was an orphan. So by the time I was born, some of her memories had resurfaced, and she was, when I was growing up, she was trying to uncover the truth of what happened, and she was also trying to undergo this process of reconnecting with her biological family. So I guess tying into what I would hope for the future of Korean adoptees and those who are seeking access, the Sunduk Orphanage, is still in operation in Jeonju today, and they told her to her face that, yeah, we switched you, and we're sorry that you feel bad, but you should be happy. They said on camera. And they were never investigated formally. All of this fell upon my mother to do. And I don't think it should be like that. I think, I'm not sure if this is, so growing up I thought that this was just a freak kind of single one-off case, but I saw recently that a group of Danish adoptees come forward with, and their stories are strikingly similar to my mother's, and they say they have the documents to prove that they were swapped. And I think this speaks to the darker side of adoption. And I think many of the, sorry guys, many of the biggest institutions in the history of Korean adoption are still around, having never faced any sort of real accountability, or having never really been compelled to be transparent. So I think, if it's, I'm not sure if it's just up to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to take on, or if there should be some sort of verbiage in an amendment to the special adoption law that compels truth and honesty. Yeah, and I'm not asking for folks to be punished for this. Like I don't, I'm not hungry for like retribution against the system, but I think there was definitely wrongdoing that occurred, and I think even some of the things that have been controversial about adoption recently, I think it's the present and the past are connected, because most of these organizations have been around and they've kind of operated at their own discretion.